Hi, good morning. How are you today? I hope you're well and I hope you're happy. I'm down in San Diego enjoying the sunshine. And today we've got a very special guest for you. This is My Home Biz Tips, where we inspire, empower, and support home-based business owners so that they can find, create, and scale the business of their dreams without sacrificing their family or their sanity. And one of the most important things that you need in order to be able to change your life or build a business or grow in any way, actually, is your mind and what's happening inside with your thought processes, because you might not realize that there are thoughts that you have which are stopping you from moving forward. And a lot of business owners actually talk about how they're running their business made them grow and how the whole thing was a growth process. And you'll find people who've got businesses that are booming are people who have done a lot of personal development work as well. Now, some years ago, I had the pleasure to meet a wonderful lady called Vivian de Guzman, and she works with mindset in connection with prosperity. She calls herself a money magnet activator. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Vivian de Guzman.
Hello, how are
Hi,
you, everyone? Hi, Andrea. Thanks for having me today.
I'm really glad that you were able to come and talk to us today because I know you're very busy. You actually also have a program on the same channel, don't you?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, tell us about that.
Yes, it's called My Spiritual Money. What do you call them? Oh my God, I have two shows. It's called My Spiritual GPS and My Spiritual Money RX. So one is Tuesday and one is Wednesday.
Right. So again, My Spiritual Money RX, RX as in prescription.
Yes, as in some advice for some people to really find that money flow.
Right. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I basically have a way to look at a person's body and energy field and see what is blocking them from allowing money to come in, or in other words, be a money magnet, so to speak, right? Finding the alignment in their mind, body, soul, and spirit so that when they're making money, they're happy, they're enjoying it. So it's not a chore because money is energy. So money can come to us rather than us chasing it. And that's the goal of that program, is to know whatever your genius zone is and to be happy with what you're doing so that money comes to you with ease, grace, and flow rather than you chasing this money.
Wow, that sounds like the perfect place to be when you're running a business.
Yes,
Because I
definitely.
think a lot of people struggle with getting enough money in
Yes.
to make a living. And yes, and I think a lot of businesses close and people give up because they're not bringing in enough money.
Yeah, and like you said, some of it is mindset, but even prior to mindset, there's been programming that's been done by either our parents, our society, our culture, our religion, right? So whatever it is that caused us to believe it as some magical thing that is sometimes not for us, that's just a mindset. It's a not deserving mindset, right? Like, so if you don't feel you don't deserve it, so of course you're not going to have it. It's simple.
Right. And I think a lot of that comes from, I don't mean to be antagonistic about any particular faith, but I think that there is the idea of, to be a really good person of faith, you sacrifice. And therefore, having wealth is rude or somehow inappropriate.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the idea of monks with everything else. There are Buddhist monks, there are Christian monks, you know, so I don't think it's one religion only.
no, no.
And please don't be offended if you are a religious person and you're listening in. I'm not trying to make it, I'm not trying to degrade religion in any way. I'm a very religious person myself. But I do feel that there have been times in history where somehow we've been taught that it's bad people who are wealthy. I mean, think of the expressions that we use around money. We talk about people being filthy rich.
Yes, yes,
That
yes.
is something that you'd want, isn't it, to be filthy rich?
Right. Yeah.
Because the association
Mm-hmm.
that it's a bad thing. And people who are wealthy are perceived as people who have damaged somebody else in some way in order to get to where they are. That somehow becoming wealthy means causing suffering to other people.
Right. And I teach this a lot, right, to my clients and even on my TV show. So I think part of that expression is because money is in all of our energetic boundaries. So physically, we need money to survive, right? Food, clothing, and shelter. That's our normal needs in life. Now, beyond food, clothing, and shelter, now if we desire more, right? And let's say our family didn't come from that rich or wealthy side, then wanting more may mean bad for them because they couldn't provide. Does that make sense? So that's the physical part. So the emotions come in because we have physical, emotional, relational, or relationship, and spiritual side, right? If you think of the colors of the rainbow, we have that in our field as beings, as human beings. So if our parents were not born wealthy, so to speak, or they have to work hard for the money, we start to associate meanings to that, if that makes sense. And our relationship to money becomes reflected in all our relationships with people, unfortunately. It really does translate if we go step by step in all of these different relationships. And then spiritually, if let's say our faith taught us that it is a bad thing, right? Think about it. How could it be a bad thing when they also need it? Like when they ask for contribution. So it's really not a bad thing, is it? Right? So it's just the way we associated it to be bad that makes it bad. Otherwise, you with your own brain can really look at things and say, I wonder why they think it's bad. Or I wonder why they think that's good. And then try it for yourself.
Right. That's a good point, actually, because the idea of having to work extra hard and never quite having enough
You
isn't
like
really
going
real.
there, right? You like going and participating in those activities. However, if you're invited, but then there's like a push-pull energy, you're not going to go either, right? So the same thing with money. If you invite it in your life and you're like resistant to it because you have that negative thought pattern, unfortunately, it doesn't quite come to you so easily. So then it's a push-pull. Like, do you want me? Oh, no, not really. Am I your friend? Oh, no, I don't know. So, so just think of the basic relationship you have with money. When you're upset with it, it does go away. Just like if you're upset with a human friend, they don't become your friends after a while, right? Because you're pushing, the energy is pushing rather than inviting or pulling it in. So that's how money behaves, is it does respond depending on how we think about it, we look at it, the way we feel about it.
Right. So your work is about helping people change the way that they feel about it and think about it and respond to it so that they can open up whatever is blocking and the flow of money coming in can
ease,
increase.
grace, and flow. I mean, who doesn't want ease, grace, and flow?
Well, that means that ease, grace, and flow to wealth sounds an awful lot more desirable than being filthy rich.
Yeah,
Although the
exactly.
result's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got to embody that too, right? It's not just in your head, right? Your body has to feel that. Because if you don't, Well, how are you, like, if you're inviting your friend, but then you're like, oh my God, I don't even know why I invited this person in my house. Do you think that person's even going to come, or are they going to feel that energy, that repellent energy that you are showing, or maybe you're not showing yet, but you're just thinking about it? They're going to feel that, by the way, because it's energetics. Everything for me is energetic. So when you have a lot of negative feelings about something or someone, it doesn't quite feel good to have a relationship with them.
No, and it's true. If you go to somebody's house and they're
Mhm.
not in the mood to be
Yes.
social, you
Mhm.
do want to leave. I mean, not that we can practice that so much now with isolation and everything,
I love
but
that.
you know, when life goes back to normal, we'll be able to
Mhm.
test it, because it is true that the way that you feel affects other
Yeah.
people around you. And
Yeah,
it's
because the way
all,
you feel is like a fuel, right? Like your car cannot run without gas or fuel.
correct.
So if your feelings are majority negative towards someone or something, what do you think will happen? That's how we treat money. Majority of people in the world, unfortunately, treats it as such. Therefore, it's not very welcome in your life. So if you start to really open up a bit more to the idea of, well, what if money is my friend? What if it really wants to be invited to be part of my life? I wonder how money would feel. So just think of it that way. Just experiment on it, right? I
It's a
encourage you
great
to.
idea. Yeah.
Yes.
To make money into a character that you
Yes.
want to befriend, so that that person then does nice things for you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. Now, you haven't always been a money magnet activator, have you?
Mm-mm.
Or you haven't, you
In
probably have
fact, I had
always
the
been.
opposite mindset of I have to work hard. I had to work hard to actually have money in the past, right? Because
Right.
I was raised like that. Again, the culture, the religion, the tradition, all of those were factors for me to really get to America. I came from the Philippines to even get
Ah,
here and be in this state, right? So
right.
it was a lot of unlearning. I call it unlearning.
Yeah.
Unlearning what I've learned in the past.
Right. And you were in the medical field. You worked in the
I was
medical
a
field,
physical
right?
therapist, right? And
Uh-huh.
then I shifted to doing holistic work, helping cancer patients, lymphedema, even TMJ, like your jaw issues, tension. So a lot of things related to stress and being sick, right? So being sick, what's the opposite of being sick? Being well. So I
Yes.
moved from the sickness industry to the wellness industry.
Okay. That's
I,
nice.
I like I like to feel both sides, I
Right. Yeah,
want
that
to be
makes
part of
complete
something.
sense. Right.
Yes.
Were you always an entrepreneur?
Mm-mm. So I was a physical therapist. My parents were both employees. They worked in the United States Navy. It's called the base in the Philippines, right? And then, of course, so I grew up without entrepreneurship background.
Right.
Yes. And then when I
And
took up my physical therapy, and then I said, I want to study more. I love studying. I just love learning new things. So then
mm,
I took an MBA, Master's in Business Administration, while my
mhm.
two kids were growing up with my husband, because I thought that was an excuse for like date nights. I just like to combine things. I love doing things together. And so for
Yes,
me, like, oh, it's kind of romantic, right? Going to school together, like growing together. I like that idea of growing
yeah,
together.
that
Yeah, so
worked.
that's what I did.
And then you became an entrepreneur.
Yes. So I had this, how your body just doesn't feel right. I think for a lot of people, it's either we go through that phase of suffering and sacrifice for the family and all that good stuff. But then when I had a stroke, I had this, it's like a mini stroke because it was just a warning sign that my whole right side was numb and I was dizzy. I got up, I had to go to the bathroom, and I suddenly have my right side arm and leg like kind of bent. So we call that flexion synergy pattern. Like you look like this. And then I'm like, what's going on in my world? So a stroke metaphysically means really it's either you're choosing between life and death. And that was shocking to me because I think I was so stressed out. I was so busy at that time because I had my fourth child was born, but he was a premature child. And I had all these things I was thinking about opening another business, opening a business because I had a boarding care for the elderly. In other words, I was multitasking, right? I had a physical therapy. I was a physical therapist. I had 4 kids. One was premature in the hospital. And then I was running 2 boarding cares for the elderly. Just a lot, right? I
Wow,
love
that's
keeping
a lot.
myself busy. And then the universe and God said, stop, don't do that anymore. Like, stop whatever you're doing and look a little bit deeper. I think that was my wake up moment to do
Mhm.
something else. And it was when I was reading Louise Hay's book, and I was like, my God, I don't want to diet. That's what I realized is I had to make a choice,
Gosh.
life versus death. And do I want a life that I love, or do I want a life that I'm disabled? And that was not a choice with 4 kids, right?
No.
And a husband and 2 businesses I'm running. And I said, I need to reevaluate my life at that point.
Wow.
And that was my aha moment, my shocking aha moment to stop what I'm doing and change to something else. So I'm not saying you guys have to have like these big, devastating, catastrophic moments to make a decision. I think COVID itself was already catastrophic and devastating for most of us. That should have woken us up to do something else if you're not happy with your life, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they've been talking about a reset, and in some ways,
Mhm.
it certainly at the beginning it slowed us all down, didn't it? And I
Yes.
know that people were getting into better habits, better communication with the rest of the family because suddenly everybody's at home. People were
Yep.
beginning to have meals together at the table, which they hadn't had before, and sort of enjoying time together because there wasn't anything else to do or anywhere else to go. I don't know
Yes.
whether that still exists or not, but yes,
Mhm.
it was a
Yeah.
time for a lot of people to rethink, and I think a lot of home businesses sprung up during that
Mhm.
time.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Because, like, even you and I are familiar with some of the principles we learned that we have a core, which is us, and then we
Yeah.
have our family unit, and then we have our work. But sometimes I think we try to reverse that, like we put work as before family. And we never feel good anyway, right? When our life is not quite on track. And
Yeah.
whatever is important to you, like if your values are family first before work, it's really up to you. Everybody's individual is an individual. So you choose the values you choose to honor, and then you live your life like that. So
Right.
obviously, when you live your life based on your values, you're gonna feel good no matter what, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, when some things happen to us, we call it maybe negative experiences. They're not really negative. Sometimes it's a check and balance, so that we can look at ourselves and go, okay, am I living it based on what makes me happy, based on my design? What is it, right? And then you can reevaluate and change for the better. It's just an opportunity for change. So I look at all these negative things as opportunities for change.
Yes, that's an excellent viewpoint. And I've heard many times before
Mm-hmm.
that some of the most successful and most interesting businesses come out of recessions because
Mm,
that's when people actually start to look at what's really needed. And
yeah.
when they come up with a solution of something that's really needed, everybody wants it. So their business booms.
Right. Obviously, money is something that we all need in this lifetime, right? In this
Yes,
world, because we need it for food, clothing, and shelter, at least for our basic needs.
yes.
Interestingly, though, I don't really see a lot of, you know, when you achieve a certain level of success and you're satisfied with what you have, or you feel
Yeah.
successful with
Yeah.
what you have, or you're happy with it, it's very interesting that you don't need that much beyond
Correct.
the basic. It's just an
Correct.
observation. Hmm.
Right. But I have a lot of admiration for people who push way beyond that point because they see that how much they can contribute.
Right. Yep.
And I love working with people who are not only interested in looking after their family, but they want to do something else. They want to bring clean water to, you know, places that don't have it, or, you know, medical supplies, and build schools, and,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. And they
teach.
just have a big heart.
Yes.
They have a big heart, right?
Yeah.
Then perhaps God gave them something bigger for them to
Yeah.
contribute to or with, and that's great. And that, I think that's where the flow comes in, the flow of
Yeah.
money, right? It's a
Yeah.
giving and a receiving.
Yes.
Because yeah, it is that, the giving and the receiving, because the more you give, the more you receive. It's kind of like, okay, but I need this thing. Okay, good. God's like, here we go. Let's do this. And then it becomes a good exchange on both sides, or multiple facets.
Yes. And I think a lot of people out there are probably thinking, but there's nothing left to give as a
Yeah.
gift, because I have to give to the electric company, and I have to give to the tax people, and I have to give to the internet provider people, and I have to give to the phone company, and give to the mortgage company, and give to the car people, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing left afterwards.
Right.
So we definitely want to help those people, because some
Yeah.
of them have got really big dreams, and I really want to support people who've got big dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
in running a business, because you had a relatively big business, and then you had another change that had you sell that business and start working effectively from home, right?
Yes, definitely. Because again, basing your business on your values, like what's important to you, that was the first thing I really had to sit down with myself and like dream up or come up with, what is this thing that I want out of life? That was my first question. And that involves a lot of deep soul searching, because you can say, yeah, I want money, I want a car, I want a nice house, I want a nice husband, you know, whatever you want, right? Do you really want that? Like deep inside, I had to ask myself a series of questions. So I go, why do I want that again? Why do I need that? So deep inside, there is an answer for you that's just unique to you. And you need to ask yourself, when you answer each question, why, why? And you're going to go deep with really what you're looking for.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And not everybody knows what they're looking for, do they? So if people are sitting there now thinking, well, but that's what I want and that's what I feel,
Mhm.
it is part of a process digging deeper, isn't it? And getting to that real point. So don't sit there now and think, but all I've ever wanted was this nice big house. What's wrong with me? Because it's a process. Not everybody always knows. It seems as though we know right from the moment that we're born what we want.
Mhm.
And I think we probably have a clearer idea then than we do when we grow up.
Mhm.
Because we then get distracted with, you know, nice, bright, sparkly, shiny things, and a bigger this and a better that and a faster something else and a prettier this or a younger whatever.
Mhm.
And I think we get distracted by a lot of those things. But
Right.
I think most of us find that when we really go inside to find what it is that we wanted to do, we can remember, oh, actually, I had that idea when I was very, very small.
Yes, exactly. And we build from small, right? We don't get bigger immediately. There's always the beginning part, then like small, medium, large. So it just depends. Like for me, I've used a lot of human design, astrology, numerology, Chaldean numerology. So I've used different disciplines to arrive at the conclusion of, okay, what is it really? Who am I? Where am I going? Anything about my past that influences me, right? And what am I creating in the future? So the first thing for those of you that are just starting, let's say you are an employee and you would like to be a business owner. So remember this, your per hour is not your, it is not the one you're going to ask from someone. So if you're making 50 bucks an hour, let's say, or realistically $25 an hour, you're not going to charge $25 an hour when you open your business. Because if I think of a business as a baby and I need to feed this child, right? It is a baby. It's not you. You are not your business, right? So if some of you are like, well, I just want it to be simple. So that means you just replace your job, right? So if you're used to making $25 an hour and you would like to collect the same $25 an hour, well, that also means you probably have to work 8 hours a day. To have a business is to have a child that you needed to feed, to clothe, and to provide shelter for. So you cannot charge $25 an hour. You have to either double it or triple it in order to pay for the expenses of the child, of the business, because the child would need food, clothing, and shelter. So if you start with that, then again, a lot of growth inside, right? Because you're going to be like, it's been ingrained in your head that you are worth $25 an hour. And then suddenly you're like, what? Am I going to go 50 or 75? Right? So those are that's part of the growth process. Because having the right mindset to start a business, it is having another baby. It's a simple.
Yeah, it is. It needs to be nurtured and cared for. And sometimes it needs new shoes, or
yes,
something,
new clothes, new hats, new everything.
Yeah.
Right? New website. I mean, how are people going to know you exist?
Right.
You have to do marketing. There's a budget for that. So when you're making $25 an hour before and you collect the same thing, that won't work. And that was my biggest fear. I remembered when I was a physical therapist and then moved into running a business, I was almost feeling guilty charging more. That was the first thing. So obviously I had money blocks a long time ago. And then I realized, oh, I can't support this business if I charge the same amount because I won't pay myself. And that was the biggest mistake that most entrepreneurs make. They don't pay themselves because they're feeding this baby. Well, if a mother doesn't exist to feed her child, tell me what happens. So I'm breaking it down to that analogy, right? That's a very close relationship to us. So what happens if you give all your energy to your child and you don't have anything left?
You don't have anything left. Yeah, you get stressed out and conked out, and eventually the child suffers.
Yes, and because you get upset and you're hot-headed and you yell. That's what happens, right? So we need to shift the mindset if you are going to be an entrepreneur, because it takes a lot of time. Sometimes, well, some people take a short time, but if you've been working, let's say for 20, 30 years, and suddenly you want to build a business, you have to shift something. Something has to change. It cannot just transfer. I wish it's like magically like a fairy dust and I would just do this and go quick. Like the next morning you're like, oh no, I'm not this person anymore working for this company. I'm now the boss of my company. Those are two different hats and it requires different skill sets. And I think that's why we get too hard on ourselves, especially women. Like, I should have figured it out. Why did I even change my job? Come on. Give yourself time to heal and release all the old stuff and then create something new. Really, that's the key.
Can you overlap? I mean, can you start your own business while you're still employed by someone else?
Yes, definitely. You could do that too. And it's like riding two boats, right? So it just depends. If your business starts to take off and the boat goes faster, then what happens to your legs? So I'm creating a physical analogy so you guys feel it, right? What happens if one boat goes faster? You're going to stretch, right? So you may have to have a milestone, right? When I make this much money here, then I can release this other job. So I can be here in my new role as a business owner rather than spreading myself too thin or doing a splits, because
Right.
eventually you break yourself that way.
Right. So is there a magic number for that, do you think?
The magic number is once you actually, I think I heard this from a coach in the past and I forgot who, but you need to be able to at least make half of what you're making already. And that's the safe exit from the job.
Right,
So,
because you want a little bit of incentive as well, don't you? It's like, I'm only making half, I've got to make some more. So I'm
yes,
now going to focus all my attention on my new project.
yes.
But I can see advantages from a financial point of view of having the security of an income when you first start.
Yeah, definitely. It is the security, right? Like what's safe to you. Security is safety. So if money for you is something that makes you feel safe, because it takes a few things to learn, right? There are skills to run a business. It's not just, oh, I'm good at what I do. Okay, so what? Are you good at producing slides, producing content, or are you good at sales? Are you good at marketing? Are you good at business management, right? Or are you good at the financial side of it? Or are you good at donating certain things? So there's so many aspects of the business to run that if you think you can do it all, that's the reason why you have coworkers. Because if there's like 30 people in your company and suddenly you are the company, think about that. So people kind of underestimate like what is business ownership. It is more than one person in a department. And if you really would like the capacity to earn more money than what you're making, right? Because in a salaried employee job, even if you work hard, even if you're good at what you do and you take more skills through seminars or webinars, you're only going to get paid the maximum amount that your company will pay you. That is the max. There is nothing beyond that.
Correct.
When you have a business, it's a different story. However, you also have to fund the other departments.
Right. So you could have a marketing department and a bookkeeping department. Those are often two of the departments that I think people start off with earlier than the others, because marketing is so important. And then, you know, if
people
you're
need to know what you're doing and what you're offering.
Exactly, they need to know you exist. And then if you're making money and you need to invoice people, you've got to have someone looking after making sure that you're getting paid to do things.
Right.
And luckily, nowadays, it's really easy to find people to join your group or your team you know, for relatively inexpensive starting points, I think. And that's one of the things that My Home Biz Tips was created for, to support people with all these other steps, because you're not, if you're an expert in a certain thing, you're not an expert in the other things.
In everything, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like stay in your lane is what we call it. You have to stay in your lane.
Right. And from being around you, I've noticed that there are certain characters, certain characteristics or character traits, if you like, that people have that make them more likely to be better at doing certain things, right? So you can choose in your business which bits that you like to do, and then find someone else who enjoys the other bits. I mean, there are plenty of people out there who love numbers, who are
Mm,
great at doing bookkeeping and accounting. And
mhm,
there are other people who love communicating and sales, you know. So there's always somebody who will really enjoy doing what it is
mhm,
you don't enjoy, so
definitely.
that you end up with a group of people who are all loving what they do.
Exactly. And if you have that, well, it starts with the leader also, right? If the leader loves what they do
Mm.
and then just knows where to drive their lane, then the other people can do their job well. And then it becomes this beautiful, we call it the well-oiled machine that just everybody contributes. They're acknowledged for their genius zone. When you're like that, then of course you're happy, right? Because there's a lot
Yeah,
of positive reinforcements happening in the group. And
yeah.
then, of course, the clients want to work with you because the whole team is also communicating with one another, and the right hand can see what the left hand is doing, and then they're not clashing. Can you
Mhm.
see that clashing? Yes, definitely.
And then how do you fit the other parts of your life in? How do you fit your family in? And you've got 4 children. I've only got
Yeah.
one. Sometimes I find that difficult to juggle. So how
Yeah.
have you made that work?
So fortunately, I have two. One graduated in college. The other one is about to graduate in 1 to 2 years. She likes to change. And two little ones, right? So I put it on a schedule. And then I usually during like this holiday season, we start to have a little family meeting, when we have our vacations, and we start to ask them because, children change and their needs change and their wants change. So you ask them what's important to them so everybody feels heard. And then in the past, what I've done is really schedule appointments even with my children. Like my girls like to hang out, either go shopping or just go hang out at the mall, do something when pre-COVID. So I would ask them, hey, do you want to go out with me this month? And then I'll put them on the schedule so we understand. There's an agreement on when we're going to do that. It also teaches, I think, my children to ask before, how people just go, they assume that you're the mother, that you're supposed to do this. There's a lot of misunderstanding there. So I actually show them my calendar and I say, hey, you want to hang out? I'm free sometime this week. When would you like to do that? And then I put that on my calendar. So then there's an undivided attention given to them, and we share the same interest during that time rather than me thinking about, oh, I got to work, I got to do this, the multitasker in an entrepreneur. So scheduling really helps, and they
Mm,
understand the value of that. Like,
right.
oh, yeah, you make an appointment. It's just being polite, right? And respectful of your time, their time, because they're also
Mm.
doing something. So that's what I've done that in the past, calendaring those appointments. It works.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Putting a
Hmm.
calendar and then having a structure. It does seem, with every conversation I have or everything I write, it all does seem to come back to having a system in place and having structure in place,
Yeah,
having a routine, having a rhythm, basically repeating the same thing.
right. There's a rhythm. Like, look at the weather. There's a rhythm, right? Winter,
Yeah.
spring, summer, or fall. We can't change that. Now, if you go with a rhythm, like the moon has a rhythm, the sun has a rhythm, right? There's a daytime, nighttime. So if you like to make your life chaotic, it's really up to you. Now, some people that are super organized, they sometimes they're like, I really don't want to do that, right? But the excitement is in the craziness of not being organized until you can't catch up. So there's
Yeah.
always the beginning and the end of everything, right? So let's say you're super organized and you're like, oh, I want to try to be just crazy and not thinking about any structure. Go for it. You'll see. And then you can be in the middle and go, okay, I like a bit of this and a little bit of that. So now scheduling doesn't mean that you have to fill up your whole schedule. Please don't do that. If you're the boss, you shouldn't have an 8-hour job. Like I like freedom. That's one of my values. So If I say, I feel like working 3, like my body, a muscle test, and I go, today I may work for 4 hours. Okay, or 3. Actually, today is a 3-hour thing. So then that's it. After that, I just have to say, okay, I'm done, because you've achieved your max, like your energy level. You're only productive during that time.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. That's why you're the boss. You're the entrepreneur. Now, if you work for someone and it's an 8-hour job, that's the regulation, right? You decided to enter that. So then you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Look at people that really work 8 hours, 5 days a week. They're exhausted. I haven't met anyone that has a lot of free time. They think that it doesn't exist because their whole life has a schedule. Not
But they
fun.
always seem to be desperate for the weekend, don't they? People
Yes.
who
But then when you get back home, look, what do you need to do? You need to clean your house. There's so much. So the delegation piece in an entrepreneurship is very appealing for most people.
It's crucial.
It is. It is. The rest and the rejuvenation is critical to your own health and well-being, your own sanity.
Right. So that's how you fit it all together, and it makes complete sense. When your children were smaller and you couldn't sit with them and schedule them in, then how did you manage that?
Well, I just scheduled the park time with them.
Right.
Going to the park because I like nature, so exposing them to that. In the playground, there's different kinds of equipments, right, that they could use and they could explore. Well, that's the physical therapist in me, right? So as they grow up, their interests change.
Yes, that's right.
As your business grows, the level of your commitment to your business also changes. Believe it or not, the bigger you grow, as you get into the 6, 7-figure or 7-figure mark, what happens is you start to delegate more and you stay in your genius zone. Whatever you're good at, you just do that, and the rest of it, you give it to people who love that department. That's the key to success, right? When you can let go and stop controlling everything, you can just stay in your lane and be happy and just work how many hours you like to work. That's really the key there to a 7-figure or $1 million or more income. Delegation is the key. And if you do a 6-figure, like 100,000 to 500,000, there is a lot of massive imperfect actions because you're still trying different things, and that's okay, right? And then when you're transitioning from employee to entrepreneur, you really need to learn a little bit more about what's important to you. It's not what everybody else is doing, right? What is important to you? Because if you are the lifeblood of this business, why are you looking at someone else? You can look to just see, okay, what are they doing? Would I like that?
Can I interrupt you a second?
Sure.
Did you say massive and perfect action?
Imperfect. Massive, imperfect action for the 6-figure earner, 100,000 to maybe 300,000, right? Because it's the transition, right? When we are growing something, then you got to do something. It's not like I can meditate all day. I could do that. That doesn't mean it's going to come to me because I live in a physical universe. I still have to do something to make things happen. Now, I have to choose what are those activities that'll generate that amount, right? With ease, grace, and flow, rather than run myself ragged to get that income. That is not what I am advocating.
Right.
Because if you don't know what's important to you, you're going to go against your own values, and you won't like, even if you made the money, you won't like it anyway.
You won't like it, and it won't stay.
Yeah.
Because it'll know that you don't like it, and it'll go off and find somebody else to hang out with.
Exactly. That's your best friend money, right?
Right. Now, I think you said a couple of really important things, and one of them is that it's imperfect action. And I think a lot of us are waiting till things are just perfect, and until we don't want to send out that blog because it's not quite perfect. And then when we do publish it, it's actually 3 weeks late because we've been sitting on it for a long time, or we don't want to release this product because it's not quite right. And you're saying that things can be imperfect and still work.
Yes, definitely. I learned this a lot. You just have to have a structure, right? Like a skeleton. You know how when you build a house, you really don't know how it looks like, except if you're a perfectionist that every detail has to be right. No, you're like, well, I kind of like it like this. The bedroom is on this side and it's 2 stories. Like you have your own ideas. You give it to the architect draws that, and then the people start working on it, right? So when you're building a course, you do have to decide, okay, I always reverse engineer my process. So I go look at what outcome would I like my clients to have. So for example, my prosperity mindset bootcamp, that's a six months, because I notice I'm very fast as far as energetics, right? However, not everybody can process as fast as I'm doing things. So therefore I go, okay, so what do they need to feel safe? First question, because they're moving from employee to entrepreneur. 6 months gives them some time to clear or change their mindset towards prosperity. What do I really want to have in my life to be happy, right? Because you got to be happy. Otherwise, what kind of business are you creating when you're like, oh my God, I got to wake up and do this again? That's not happy. People are not going to come to you when you have a lot of resentment towards what you're doing. It doesn't work.
Right. Yeah.
Like, why do I hang out with you? I don't like you very much.
Yeah.
Unless you like tortured, right? Or sacrifice yourself. It doesn't work like that. People love to feel welcome, and people want to be in a group wherein they feel like they're growing with other people. So this transition from employee to entrepreneurship, I notice it's not an overnight thing. It's not a 2-month thing, not 3 months. And I'm like, okay, how long does it take for people to really get it? And I've run enough programs to observe that, because you're going from, let's say, a 5-figure income to maybe going on 6, or maybe you're in a 6-figure income, but you're an employee, you're not an entrepreneur. So there's a shift that's going on, right? There's a change that needs to happen, not just mindset, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Like everything changes. So that's why I gave it a 6-month thing. And it requires some energy work. It requires a difference in mindset. And then the attitudes, then the behaviors, our beliefs about money. Well, because we do have our own beliefs. It doesn't mean it's true for everyone. It's true for you. But the question is it helping you or is it hurting you? So you really have to know what that is. And you have to calm down. You have to stop stressing. That's really the number one key. If you're stressed out all the time, I don't know if money is going to come to you. Like, do you like hanging out, Andrea, with stressed out people? I just think about it.
No.
Nobody likes, oh my God, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I'm like, okay, what do you want now?
Yeah, it's actually hurts almost in a physical level when people around me are too stressed and agitated. And I have a daughter. She's now grown up. I'm looking as if I'm looking to see where she is. She's upstairs.
How old is she now?
She's now 14.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And I have a puppy who is 8.5 months old.
Okay.
And I have a husband. And so I live in close proximity to other people and other beings. And it's very interesting. They all avoid the person who's stressed out. Even the dog does it.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Just moves away where there is stress. So if somebody starts getting angry and upset about, I don't know, it happened earlier today. Before it happened with you, it happened with someone else. A computer not working properly. And people get wound up. You sort of see other people moving away.
Yeah, it's
First
a
they try and
push
help, when they
energy.
realize they can't
Yeah.
help, they just move away. It's a subconscious thing.
The aura, or the energetic field, becomes erratic, like a spiky thing. I mean, do
Yeah.
you like spiky things? Just ask yourself. If there's a
Yeah.
spiky plant and you're hiking, you move away from that, making sure you don't get hit by the thorns, right?
Right.
Same thing with people. They don't realize, or maybe they're not conscious when they just blow up. So there's so much pressure inside their body, they have to blow up. And of course, you just push people away.
Yeah.
And you
So,
can do that in your business. So you guys that are thinking about having a business, or you're in business and you're always upset, you're pushing money away. That's what you're doing.
yeah, you're being a spiky thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
So of all your years of experience in the different areas that you've worked in, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's starting out?
That's a hard question for me, right? So if your question is, how do you become a money magnet?
Sure.
Okay. So again, if you think about money is energy.
Yes.
And if you can receive it with ease, grace, and flow, you can have it. So that statement is loaded, right? Because mentally, you have to be able to receive.
Yes. What you're saying sounds backwards, because it sounds as though someone has to give it to me in order for me. I mean, I think that someone has to give me something for me to have it. But you're saying I have to be able to have it in order for somebody to give it to me.
You have to have a container. So if you don't have any offer, well, how are people going to exchange money with you? So even if you have one container, one offer in your business, and you make that, like once you make it, that's that, right?
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat, so to speak. So you can have a very simplified business with one offer. So you run, let's say, a group, or you want one-on-one. Obviously, if it's one-on-one, it's just going to be limited to just one-on-one interaction. It doesn't matter if you charge $500, $1,000, $10,000 for your hour. It's still one person, limited to the time, right? Versus group that you can fill it. Now, obviously, your container depends on your capacity to exchange that information and energy. So if you can receive, because you have something to give, all of us have. Whether we went to school, we didn't go to school, we have experiences in our lives. You can help someone, but you have to receive. So a lot of people that give advice or just help people, they just like to help, but then if somebody wants to help them, they're not open to that. So money is energy. So if you're not able to be open to receiving, you can't really have money, unfortunately.
Yeah. Asking for help is a really big thing. Yeah.
Yes, that's that.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's perfect. So we've talked about how our thought processes and our experience and our feelings control our action, which affects the outcome of what's happening.
Yes.
And how, in order to be able to grow our businesses and indeed develop our lives, we need to be able to receive the things that we want, which could be other things, couldn't they? I mean, if one were seriously overweight, couldn't one want to receive weight loss and a nice slim body? If one had a physical issue that was a problem, couldn't one want to receive perfect health or almost perfect health, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. So you can apply this information in lots of different circumstances in life. Right. Thank you for that. That's really valuable and precious. Before we go, I believe you have a gift that you'd like to give to the audience of today's show.
Yes. So for this particular group, I know that they're probably interested how to clear their money blocks, right?
Yeah, I should say so. Definitely.
So you can go to overwhelm911.com and you can see my site there. And if you keep on scrolling down, you'll see this book called Money Blocks. 8 steps to get to 6 figures in 90 days or less in any economy.
Wow, 90 days is not long.
90 days is about 3 months, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a #1 bestseller in Amazon. You can get it in an ebook format, or you can get a book.
Right.
Definitely.
And that's linked on our website, actually. On our website is a little section about you. It has your picture, little biography, links to various places, and the link is on there. So our website is MyHomeBiz.TIPS. And you also have your own website, don't you? Which is viviandeguzman.com. Is that it? Okay,
Yes.
that'll be on the screen in a second.
Yes.
Right, so that's where we can find you.
Definitely.
But you're saying that the book, what was it called again?
Money Blocks. 8
Money
steps to get to 6 figures in 90 days or less in any economy.
Right, but that's on a different website.
That's overwhelm911.com.
Overwhelm911.com.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds like we don't want to be. So the money the solution we find if we find out.
So if you can find the solution before you even have the problem, that's a great book to have.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Definitely. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much, Vivian. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you, Andrea, for inviting me, and I hope to see you guys either on my website requesting that, or definitely reach out. If anybody would like a free clarity call, they can also find it in that site. So thank you so much.
Perfect. And look out for Vivian's show on this network as well. This is AP Media Network, and Vivian's show is called My Spiritual RX.
Money RX.
Money RX.
Wednesdays at 12 p.m.
Okay. And this is Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks, Vivian. See you again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.